Okay, let's go ahead and call this to order here. It is Tuesday, January 13th at about 5:15 p.m. and this is a meeting of the Recreation and Parks Committee. I am Rocky, chair of this committee. The other committee members are Mrs. Robin Oda to my right and Mr. Doug Tremblay to my left. And we are here today to provide a recommendation to council regarding the request of the Board of Park Commissioners that council authorize the board to execute the addendum to the lease of the property known as the Barn in the Park to allow the Troy Civic Theater Inc. to use the additional public property to install a shed structure. And we've actually got two items tonight, so Mr. Titterton, if you don't mind, can we tackle this one first and then move forward?
Whatever your pleasure is, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
The first item is a recommendation from the Park Commissioners. The Troy Civic Theater representatives came to the board requesting that they be allowed to construct a shed structure at Community Park on the west side of the Barn in the Park building. That would only be used for the Civic Theater, and it would only be used for storage. The Park Commissioner, after we did a little research just to make sure we understood exactly where they wanted to put it, what they wanted to put in it, and whether or not it was encroaching on Miami Conservancy District property, which is adjacent to the park. We found that the Conservancy District is okay with the location. Where they had staked it out was fine as well. It is very close to our well field, and so there were concerns about what was going to be stored there, just to make sure that there's nothing hazardous or toxic or something that could leach in. The Park Commissioners did recommend that the council approve an addendum. That addendum would require that the Civic Theater would pay for the costs associated with the shed, constructing and maintaining it. They would pay the utilities, which would be estimated based on a prorated share, because you cannot split up the electrical costs. We expect they'd be minimal anyway. Again, the location of the shed was reviewed with the Miami Conservancy District. They're okay with the location. And once installed, like any other property that's constructed, other structures that would be constructed on city property, the Civic Theater agrees that that structure will become the property of the city of Troy. That covers everything. So we are recommending that you recommend to council that they approve the addendum.
Thank you for the information, and just to make sure that I understand, there's no cost to the city at all. They're taking everything.
That's correct.
With building, upkeep, all of it. And it becomes the city's property as soon as it's completed, or if they ever choose to disband, or
No, it's completed.
as soon as it's done, it's
Becomes part
the
of
city's.
property.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
The appearance of the barn will complement, the appearance of the shed will complement the barn, we have.
Yes.
Okay. In that case, it appears to be standard leasehold improvement type agreement, where you can approve it, but you can't take it with you. Sounds good to me.
I guess we have the ability to demolish, not that we ever would need to, but if it arose, we could demolish it, we could do whatever we wanted with it.
Yeah, provided
I mean,
we give
yeah.
some notice, it's a little extreme, but yes, if there were ever any issues, say with the levee banks or something that the government, federal government or state required us to do, or the Miami Conservancy District for that matter, because that would be more of a likelihood, as unlikely as that would be, that would be more of a likelihood because it is adjacent to MCD property.
Yes.
It's going to have electricity
For lighting.
for lighting? Do they have to go through the same process that anybody else would go through to put up a shed?
They did file a permit And primary reason for that was so we understood exactly where they wanted to put it. And then we took the extra step to have them stake it out because there will be a concrete pad poured. I believe there is.
No, there won't be. It'll be on
Yeah, they changed
On
it.
gravel?
the surface that comes with the shed
That's
itself.
It's prefab.
Does it have to go through the approval process, like the design or the design?
Yeah, the administrative process, they've already worked with our property maintenance staff,
Okay.
zoning staff.
What was, the other shed that was added on the other side, what does that one hold?
Is it the restrooms?
That's the restroom.
Is that what you're talking about, the restroom?
I guess, yeah.
building?
Okay.
You don't know what it holds.
It's not storage.
It's not supposed to hold anything.
Yeah.
Maybe a tank of water.
If, when they're in the process of building this, it's covered by city insurance policies, if a little kid runs over there and gets cut, it's us or them?
They are required to have, to carry that as part of their insurance policy.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee?
I don't know.
Any questions from any other members of council? Anybody from the staff, any public? I would like to move forward.
I would move forward. It doesn't require emergency or does?
No, we're not asking for emergency.
And we'd like to move forward on this recommendation, please.
All right.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next item here.
Okay. Next item is a request or recommendation that you authorize an agreement with the 2015 Troy Strawberry Festival. We've had some discussions with the mayor, staff, and the Strawberry Festival committee, as well as their staff, related to where to have the festival, what city costs there might be based on the fact that we had this year, 2014, under our belt, and so we have some better insights as to what worked, what didn't, where we needed to change operations. The proposal, the recommendation is that we have the same venue as we did in 2014, downtown, as well as the levee. The one major change would be that Market Street from basically, I guess, Franklin Street north to Staunton would be closed to vehicular traffic. The change being that vehicles would be rerouted as they were coming south on North Market onto Staunton / Riverside, and would not be able to cross the Market Street Bridge. The bridge would be open to pedestrians. That would eliminate the concerns that we had very early on last year with many vehicles turning west onto Water Street against a crush of people that were constantly trying to cross the bridge north and south. What that does afford us the opportunity to do is to move the car show out of Community Park onto in a condensed version, so there'd be less cars in the car show, and move it to the bridge itself, as well as the North Market Ball Field parking lot, the northeast corner right there at Staunton, and I guess the southeast corner of Staunton and North Market. Getting the car show out of Community Park was important because if we're rerouting traffic away from Market Street, we need to make Adams Street and the bridge as accessible to vehicular traffic as possible, and we did not want people walking back and forth between Community Park and to the car show and back, and readjusting that area. We'll still have to manage it, watch it, because there will be some booths on the levee. But again, by making Market Street pedestrian only and moving the car show, that should be a significant improvement, we think. As you'll recall, in 2014, we required a $20,000 estimated payment, which was the estimated additional costs over and above what our typical costs, our average costs have been in the past few years, which at the time we estimated at approximately $51,000. So the premium amount, if you will, or the additional costs were estimated at $20,000. We were right in that area, so there was not any reconciliation needed. With some of the changes in the venue, as well as better understanding of the logistics, as well as reducing a couple of the events, modifying some routes, etc., and accounting for inflation and doing another rolling five-year average, we're estimating that the additional costs will not exceed $14,150. To save a lot of accounting and extra administrative work on not only our part, but also Troy Strawberry Festival, the contract that we would sign and the approval that we're seeking is that the $14,150 is the amount, and there wouldn't be any more reconciliation. We're very confident, talking with the staff, that our costs, barring anything extraordinary which happens, from time to time based on weather and other acts of God, that will cover our additional costs. One of the other changes to the 2014 festival would be how we handle the chalking and the use of the right-of-way for freedom of speech or expression. The law director is in the audience and he can speak more technically, but in looking and researching the issue, what his advice to us is that because of safety issues during the event itself, as well as when vendors are setting up and taking down daily, that kind of activity would legally be restricted in the contract. So 2 hours before the event opens on Saturday to 2 hours after it closes on Saturday, there would not be any chalking or marking on the public right-of-way in the venue. And the reason, again, is the safety concerns. It has nothing to do with the message, has nothing to do with the right to, freedom of expression. It is purely a safety issue. Then any other time, though, that would not be prohibited, that would not be restricted at all. Unless it became something unruly or it was, a traffic issue or something else other than that, but we don't anticipate that would be a concern. I'm sorry, I said 2 hours, it's 1 hour prior to and 1 hour after it closes. And again, the law director is here tonight if you have any follow-up questions about that. But I believe that covers the salient points on the proposed contract.
Thank you. Just have a few questions. The money that we get from the Troy Strawberry Festival at $20,000 now to $14,150, if there's no stipulation that if it actually costs more or actually costs less, we don't trade back money or...
Right. We would not worry about reconciliation. We spent a significant amount of time based not only analyzing what we did in 2014, but talking with the committee or with the Strawberry Festival staff about how they could streamline their costs, get those down, based on what we saw, conflicting events, if you will, additional staff time that it took us because there were multiple things going on at once. In one case, where the run starts and ends on Sunday morning, while other things are going on, meant that we had to stretch our resources even more. And so by changing some of those things and better understanding based on last year, we were able to give better estimates, and these came from the police chief, the fire chief, and the operations staff, as well as getting a very specific schedule and number of events and moving events around accordingly, which will be attachments to the contract. That's what makes us very comfortable with the number that would be in the contract.
Obviously, we don't want to lose a bunch of money, but we're not here to make money off that either, so I think it's pretty fair to try to get it down to what it's actually going to cost us and then ask them for that amount. As far as the window that the chalkers are allowed to go on, so basically, the Strawberry Festival opens up at a certain hour. They can chalk and do things all night if they want to, or whatever the regulations are there, prepare everything, then they just can't be active during that time period
That's right.
because of safety.
Right.
And I assume, Mr. Livingston's here, it's all been verified that we're able to put those restrictions and different things.
That is his legal advice.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
I've got a couple.
Yes, sir.
It says access to the senior citizen center, that means that people can go buy strawberry, whatever's.
Yes, and actually, in the contract, there will be some language that the Strawberry Festival will assist with making sure that there's signage or that they're noticed, that people know that they're there, and restricting the vehicular traffic on the bridge and only having pedestrians should help that. And as well as the fact that the car show will be brought in, that will also help visibility for them. Not only for the Senior Citizen Center, but also for the donuts. They may or may not want a booth downtown, that's up to them. They did, and there were discussions held with them as part of this process. Their primary location has been, is, and for the foreseeable future will continue to be the stadium. And so this continues access to their location and their booth, if you will, also.
And the parking lot where the baseball fields are, that'll be open to the public,
No.
and that'll be part of the car show?
That's right.
Okay. And police and fire, the safety and the security people, they've all signed off on this plan? That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Owen?
I have a question.
Sure.
So it sounds to me like we're trying, and maybe Corey, you can answer this better. Sounds like we're making a permanent move to downtown for the Strawberry Festival.
This is an annual contract. Every year we will come to you with this. This is not a multi-year contract. Are we possibly heading that way? I would not say it downtown only, because there's still, one of the things that we all had to acknowledge was that there was still a lot of activity going on at the levee. We were wondering how many people might wander across the bridge if most everything was downtown. And what we found was that there was a significant amount of traffic going north and south, with the number of booths that are involved in the festival, the electric, the utilities, and probably the physical space as well can't accommodate that number downtown anyway, at least not reasonably. So, at least in the foreseeable future, we expect, as long as it's successful, based on the tweaks that we were recommending this year, that there will be some kind of a split venue, as long as it's cost effective, doesn't overtax our services, is safe, So-
I think
so-
closing the bridge is a good idea. Will there be more vendors allowed this year? Crafters, vendors? Do you want me to?
Yes.
Please approach the podium.
No, actually, no, there won't be more, because we're not taking the full footprint of the levee. We're only taking it up to the gazebo. So therefore, you kind of take that footprint from the gazebo to Adams Street, and now that's what's happening downtown. So no, there won't be more.
So some of the vendors and things who used to come will not be there.
And some of them probably will not. We're going to have to look at the footprint, see how much works. You know, we can't overtax the resources, the electrical capacity of the downtown area. So we have to really look moving forward to what fits, because the mission is to benefit the nonprofits of Miami County. So we need to keep that in mind, do our due diligence, and make sure that we are, can have a safe festival, a profitable festival for the nonprofits, and still work in partnership with the city. And, because they're an invaluable resource to us. We couldn't do this without them.
One more question, which I'm not trying to take you off, but with Treasure Island coming under construction, is there talk in the future of moving part of the festival out to the Treasure Island area? My concern is that if we keep moving it around, it hurts the festival.
No, right, and that's correct. There have always been pros and cons to having it completely on the levee. We made the improvements to water and sewer and electric, have gotten quite a bit of use out of on the levee site. However, there's always been a concern about physically challenged access, and the downtown venue helps that immensely, and we heard very positive comments about it. The other value of adding the downtown is that it brings in and has significantly grown the participation of the downtown businesses. It was very popular for them. Of course, the GOTR event really, I think, opened their eyes to the potential there. And so, no, we have not talked about, we really haven't been contemplating at all that we would have a third move to Treasure Island.
And that was my concern.
With everything that we've been looking at so far with Treasure Island, we are not looking to displace things that go on downtown, or the levee for that matter, to Treasure Island. We're not trying to take things away. There may be some things, just as a general concept, that will work better for Treasure Island, and maybe a mutual decision. The Strawberry Festival is not one of those.
And I just wanted to add, if you don't mind, but the reason why the split venue really does work. I was the chairman in 2012. That was the first time that festival was downtown. Very receptive, very positive. The split venue brings both the beauty of Troy on the levee, looking at the courthouse, the beautiful park area, and what that brings, but also the downtown area brings our guests to our living room of our city of Troy and provides them a different view of Troy and a much more positive, and like Patrick addressed, the downtown businesses, it benefits them. So it is truly a good partnership between the downtown businesses, the nonprofits, the city of Troy, and the chamber working together to make this as successful as possible.
Yeah, and the only reason I mentioned Treasure Island was I was just concerned that there would be another move that.
Like he said, we have not, that's not even in the wheelhouse or the windshield at this point.
That's all.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Mrs. Swazer before she?
Oh,
I don't have a question for Cory, but
Thank you.
certainly will.
okay, thank you.
Stay close. But just wanted to clarify again and remind everybody that, historically for 30 or so years, however long we've been doing the festival, the city has always committed a certain level of city services as part of, our economic economic development program, our quality of life, our special events. And so we would continue to do this, much like we did in 2014. In 2014, we estimated that the difference would be $20,000 in additional city services above and beyond what we would do a typical year on the levy. So that's kind of the baseline there, that we have always programmed in our budget a base level of expenses between police, fire, and operations to support this event. Because it's a split venue, in 2014, we said, if you really want to do this, we don't have a blank checkbook. And so that's how we worked out the $20,000 difference. For the reasons that I mentioned a little earlier, a year's worth of experience, as well as changing some of the events and doing things a little differently, we've been able to narrow that $20,000 additional cost to $14,150.
That's not the total cost, it's just beyond
That's the premium.
because of the.
I just had a comment, I like the idea of vacating the community park with the car show and stuff like that, keeping it on the other side of the street so it's all confined to a boundary and leaving the Adams Street and the Adams Street Bridge fully open for safety and service and transportation from one side to the other. It appears as consolidated to one.
At this point, we do not plan to close Community Park because there are plenty of our residents and families that will want to use it regardless of whether there's a festival going on or not. And so, there may be some folks that decide they want to park there and then walk across, to the levee, or even walk all the way downtown, because it's not that far of a walk. We know that's going to happen. One of the things that will help us manage that is the fact that with the improvements for a contract that would
The
include.
contract that includes the location of the festival. I'm fine with what was presented today.
And
Move forward.
okay, and will there be something in the future to pass the ordinance that we've been talking about as far as the restrictions?
That'll be part of the contract.
That's part of this
And
contract.
it will be specifically highlighted as one of the, as part of the ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. Livingston is going to add that in there, so it's clearly.
Yeah. So it's all in there, it's not a separate thing.
That's correct.
Let me just clarify.
This
The last,
ordinance-
last year's ordinance
Yes,
had a restriction on the times on the sidewalk,
okay,
that had restrictions about carrying knives and other things in the area, and had restriction on dogs and animals. Those will be in, except for like you said, the changes for the hours. But the other restrictions that were in, if you got last year's ordinance, and look at it, they'll be essentially the same.
okay.
That's what I interpret as what we're going to put in.
So really, it's just that one change, the hours for,
Yeah, we'll put in whatever the hours are. We'll get the hours from the Strawberry people, and we'll get from, if it's at 10 o'clock, it'll be from 9 o'clock till the hour after it closes on Saturday and Sunday and every other time. And they also have, it's only the area where the Strawberry Festival itself is going to be held. So if, I used to live down on Plum Street, if somebody wants to write something in front of that, what used to be that house down on Plum Street, that's not prohibited. Passing out leaflets not prohibited. Anything else with free speech is not prohibited. The only thing that's prohibited is we're concerned about the problem created with all those 100,000 people there and people trying to be in on the streets.
yeah. And Mr. Livingston, what's the wording on that? Does it specify chalking, so if somebody goes out with another, painting or something? Is it?
Well, anybody, they couldn't paint on it, that would be
Right,
a
not
permanent
permanent,
thing, but it's not necessarily just chalking, but putting things on the sidewalk, public sidewalk and street, and, kneeling down and,
So the wording will cover something, it's not gonna be specific chalking, just activity.
yes. It's not necessarily chalk, but, I suppose plastering signs down on the street, or doing things like that.
Yes. Mr. Tedrington, do you look like you're about that?
Just to make sure that we're not talking about permanent paint or graffiti or anything.
Yeah.
We're talking about temporary things, which the chalking has always been.
Yeah, sure.
I have one question, I apologize.
Yes.
Last year there was, I was told by Captain Long that the property that I own on Cherry Street, that in front of that property, there were no restrictions, that is my property.
I don't know wherever the,
19 South Cherry Street.
well, I know where you're at, but I don't know where the boundaries are on the,
With a public sidewalk in front of that property.
listen to my answer, okay? What I was saying was, the area for the Strawberry Festival is outlined in the ordinance. Only prohibitions are within that area. I do not believe you're,
Yes,
It is in that area, it is in that area,
That's
that's what I was
what I
trying to
said,
explain to you.
he is in the area.
If it-
I'm not sure what Captain Long talked to you about. We will have a briefing as we get closer.
right, whatever's in the area is where the prohibition is.
Well, you can't
The
put
levee,
my
the
property,
street,
though.
No,
Where
but
it's
it is
drawn
the
around, where it's on the
public,
map.
the sidewalk, if it's part of the public right of way,
Right.
it has the same restrictions.
but you can have all the signs that you want there. That's not a prohibition. You can
But
pass
the
out
side-
things.
The sidewalk in front of my property, you're gonna tell me I can't chalk on that?
It is public.
It's not,
right of
it's city
way.
property,
It's-
actually.
Then that's true.
All
Many
right,
properties-
I'll just speak with my lawyer on that particular question, so. I think everything else was understandable, but with that one, as far as that one, I would like to speak to my lawyer on that one.
Well, I can't, like, in front of my house, the sidewalk, I don't own that, the city owns that. And all these streets, all the sidewalks here are public streets. So whatever's in front of your house, over there on
But your
Cherry.
children are allowed to chalk and do whatever with the sidewalk, even paint,
And
permanent
they
paint
can-
strawberries on the sidewalk in front of your house.
But if they were in the during the Strawberry Festival, they wouldn't be allowed to,
All right.
okay? I see it's a problem. People kneeling down, writing on the, chalking on the street, sidewalk.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there any other questions for Mr. Livingston? All right. Thank you for coming up with your comments. Move forward.
I'm ready to move forward. Board recommendation.
And there's no emergency or need. Let's recommend move forward, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one more comment on that.
Yes.
They do have, the Strawberry Festival Committee does have their kickoff, I guess what they call it, and that is tomorrow evening. They will be announcing that they've been talking to us about keeping the venue. They're not trying to usurp the council's authority, since you won't be able to vote on this until next Tuesday. They do respect the fact that there's a process to be followed, but because of the timing of the whole matter, the kickoff being when it is, they do want to get the word out there, conditioned upon council approving it Tuesday night.
Yes, perfect. I think that's all we've got for tonight. Let's go ahead and adjourn. Appreciate everybody's comments and times tonight. Appreciate it.